Good evening, everybody. My name is John Gillen, and I'm here to present YouTrients, which is an LLM assisted by a RAG to help with meal planning. All right, next slide. All right, the description of the tool. YouTrients uses a foundational LLM, any LLM of your choice. It takes in grocery lists, recipes, meal plans, and then it analyzes the nutritional content, both macro and micronutrients, in order to help the user identify the deficiencies in their meal plan. One of the problems that it solves is even if you can input all of your meals and the foods in your meals and your recipes, but you don't necessarily know if that's what your body needs because everybody's physiology is different. And that's where the RAG comes in, and it takes in your own specific blood work, and it can tell you where you're deficient, and then based on the meal plan that you presented, it will tell you, hey, these are the types of foods that you need that have the specific nutrients that you need to help get your levels back up to a healthy state. So that's the basic overview of the tool. The source of the idea. Meal planning, I think many people take advantage of meal prepping for at least for a week, maybe a day or two in advance to help just add efficiency to their lives. As I mentioned in the previous slide, one of the drawbacks is that you can control the inputs to your diet. You don't necessarily know how that is really affecting your body in a really analytic way, other than maybe, I feel XYZ way, or you can, go to WebMD and say, I feel this way, and, it can tell you, oh, maybe you're deficient in iron or whatever, and you can doom scroll WebMD and create any sort of issue. I think we've all probably done that. The tool is meant to bridge that gap, so you can know from an analytical perspective that you're getting all of the nutrients that you need within your diet based on your own physiology, and that'll be rooted in science and in the blood work that you're presenting to the tool. Here's the architecture of the diagram. At the top left is where you start. You have your user input, which is going to be your grocery list, your recipes, and your meal plans. From there, it'll go into the large language model and into the RAG, and it'll pick up the results of your blood work. And then it'll move to an analysis application, which will do the comparison between the two to see potentially where your blood work and your meal plan fall short of your nutritional needs. And then the output from that is going to be, those deficiencies in the food and supplement recommendations. Here's some of the user evaluation and takeaways as I talk with different people about the tool. Some of the strengths is it's personalized rather than relying on the general LLM response. Obviously there are a lot of benefits to having something like ChatGPT or the other LLMs that you can interact with, but it's very general purpose, and the RAG helps make things more specific to you rather than giving like general guidance. So make sure you have enough vitamin C in your diet, or you need vitamin D in your diet as well. Like, I think everyone knows, some of those basic things, but the RAG incorporated with the blood work makes it more personalized. Also, it removes some of the tedious work. I mean, I think you could do something like this. You visit your doctor, you get your physical every year, they do your blood work, and they can tell you what your deficiencies are. But then you still would have to go through the tedious work of like breaking down all of your meals, all of your recipes into the micro and macronutrients that it has. I mean, that is possible to do, but it's going to take a lot of research and legwork on the individual's part in order to make that happen. So this kind of helps remove that. Plus, it's more real time because you can do it on a daily, on a weekly basis whenever you want to decide to take your blood. Whereas like just basing it off the physical, you can only update it once a year whenever you get your blood work done. Speaking of the blood work, that is one of the weaknesses, is there is going to need to be a mechanism with which to draw your blood and then input it into the system. Just off the top of my head, as I was thinking through it, it's probably something similar to how folks with diabetes currently test their blood. I think some of them have like a tracker that they can wear on a daily basis. I don't think you would need that in this case. You could probably just do one little pinprick a week, I think would suffice, or even monthly, if you really don't like getting your blood pricked. Um, One of the other things, and appreciate the professor's input on this, is it doesn't necessarily need to be HIPAA compliance. I wasn't necessarily sure about that, because unless it's interacting with the doctor, it doesn't need to be HIPAA compliant, because the user has control of their own data and they can do whatever they want with it. So that's a good point there. We don't necessarily need to make it overly complex if we don't need to. Some of the recommendations is, hey, can you add some sliders for calorie count, macro count, by meal, by day, by week. That way I can ensure that I can customize it in a way that is specific to me, whether or not I'm in like a diet phase, a maintain phase, a gain phase, etc. Because it's my diet's not going to be static from month to month. It changes based on my wherever you're at in your training cycle, or what have you. Obviously, this is supposed to it's meant to improve efficiency in your life, and obviously having a prompt to standardize a prompt template to standardize the input and the output, I think would be super helpful, and that's one of the recommendations they had as well. In terms of what's next, I'd like to do a similar idea, which is a cortisol tracker. Like I said, it's very similar to the current tool where it takes user input, and then takes a blood sample, and in this case, it would measure cortisol levels specifically. Our reason for that is this is specifically related to designing of training programs. Right now, it's hard to measure your day-to-day or your week-to-week response to a specific training program. The ultimate decider on how well a training program is working is, let's take weightlifting or powerlifting for example, is, are your numbers going up? And that will tell you if it's working or not. But some of the other corollaries to that are, okay, how do you feel on a weekly basis as you're going through your training? Is there potentially a way to help maximize the training to where you can fully recover from each training session and then get the optimal amount of stimulus between training sessions to kind of maybe help push those numbers a little further than they would be otherwise? Some of the current ways that people do that is through heuristics, and it's like, okay, rate of perceived exertion. Okay, how tired did you feel? How beat up did you feel after this training session? And how many days did you need to recover before you could go back and give a similar sort of effort? Or things like grip strength. Grip strength is another way to measure. You get a baseline at the very beginning, and then from day to day, your nervous system's recovery is going to determine how much grip strength you can output, and how close you can get to baseline will help determine how recovered you are for this training session. But at the end of the day, all of those are proxies for cortisol in the blood. That is the ultimate tracker of stress and your body's response to training. And being able to measure that directly, you can really fine tune training. So that's kind of the next step. So that's all for the tool that I designed. Appreciate the professor's input, and this was a really fun class. So thanks everybody.